Grand evening, everyone. It is now Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, and we have had many new developments recently. This is initially a live stream recording that is posted to my YouTube channel and right here on X and my new dedicated Facebook page for this channel. One moment. Gotta change the audio setting on these earbuds for the microphone. All right. So, I believe if my count is correct, it is week 20 of the total kinetic phase of World War III. And things have much intensified recently and escalated and spread further throughout the Middle East. We'll check my audio before we continue. Okay. It's been busy recently. We have had over here a lot of things to deal with. And it has been busy with the news and all of that recently. Where do I begin? Let's see. So we'll start right here. Right here. So we have nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles that are going to Germany. They've likely already got there by now. So, nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles to Germany. Germany is, of course, another NATO country. And then, because of the total escalation and intensification and the spreading further of war in the Middle East, the U.S. has deployed at least 20 warships and 2 aircraft carriers toward Iran. And then some reason, right around that same time, Dutch intelligence has said that Russia hacked cameras near NATO military routes to track weapons deliveries. So Russia hacked cameras near NATO military routes to track weapons deliveries and more than that. So they could monitor some troop movements and weapons deliveries. So it's also, they're doing that because they could track US and NATO military logistics by hacking those cameras. They could have a much closer look on the US and NATO military logistics. So that is a step, and it is a further preparation for war with NATO and the US. It's so that they could track troop movements and military logistics overall when it comes to the US and NATO. And things have intensified so much that Iran has said that we will not negotiate with Trump any further. So no sign of peace at all with Iran. The memorandum of understanding has officially collapsed. Iran does not want to even negotiate now with the US, or it seems NATO entirely. Iran has hit more ships in the Strait of Hormuz. We have this here from Douglas McGregor, and it's an intelligence report overall. He said, all hell breaking loose in the Middle East. Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. They fired upon a vessel. The U.S. is now conducting massive strikes. That was July 11th. Those strikes have been ongoing for over 4 days now. I think it's the 5th day. There's been over 140 targets hit in Iran. There's been a lot of bombing back and forth between Iran and the US, and even some other countries have gotten more involved. I've heard something about, I think it was Saudi Arabia is now attacking Yemen. I think they're launching, if I remember correctly, they're launching missiles at Yemen. They're fighting the Houthis there in Yemen. I don't think it's a ground operation yet. That's quite new breaking news that Saudi Arabia is now further involved in this war. And then we have sounds from the Iranian coast near the Strait of Hormuz. This is likely some kind of special forces operation that was happening at that time. It is not a full-blown ground operation, though there's some gunfire in this video and explosions. You could hear it all in the background. There's some gunfire. So as you may have heard there, it's clearly gunfire and some kind of explosions, maybe grenades or some kind of artillery or motors. I think maybe it was motors that were going off. As for the explosions, potentially grenades, but it sounded like motor fire in the background. with all that gunfire. In the Middle East, a lot of the enemies they use motors. It's a type of explosive, goes in the tube, then they launch it accurately at a target. And then we had a report here that Iran has launched missiles at the U.S. Navy. I've also seen other reports that they've launched missiles at I think a U.S. Navy base in the Middle East. They fired at a U.S. military base in the Middle East time and again since this near nonstop fighting has been happening over there. So it has massively intensified and escalated dramatically the war, mainly on the Middle Eastern front. And Russia and maybe even China are preparing. They're doing some kind of maybe near final preparations before they launch a coordinated strike on their targets. We can expect Russia to do something very soon, and maybe even China. Then we have this here. Some reason, surprisingly, and this has been big news. Benjamin Netanyahu announced on Fox News that preparations to begin the Pentagon and the Israeli Benjamin Netanyahu announced on Fox News that preparations to merge the Pentagon and the Israeli military will begin soon. So, Israel intends to merge their military with the Pentagon. Uh, it's potentially an act of treason. It is a very stupid thing to do. Merging a military with a foreign nation, doesn't matter if it's Israel or another, it's a very bad idea. That's going to allow Israel a lot of a lot more power and a lot more intelligence and a lot more control over the US. That's what any country would be allowed more of. So very concerning that Israel will be merging, their military will be merging with the Pentagon and our military, the US military. Very concerning, possibly treasonous news there. We will see how that goes, and if it really happens, that's quite a problem. Now, we also have reported here the average US home is now more unaffordable to the average American than at any point in history. So homes are highly unaffordable, more so than any point in history here in the US. As for further domestic news here in the United States, and then we have this news here that's being reported by an a Middle Eastern news source that said Trump has chosen to crash the global economy. When it comes to this war, especially the Strait of Hormuz and the other strait near Yemen being closed and heavily affected, the entire global economy is collapsing because of this war, and the global economy cannot handle this war and the effect it has on resources and global trade. So the global economy is definitely collapsing. Then we have this here. We have at least 3 US soldiers confirmed killed in Iran strikes on Kuwait. So there was massive black smoke that was seen. It rises there after an American ATACMS missile system was hit by 3 ballistic missiles. Kuwait confirms material damage from the barrage. So that was a US military base being hit in Kuwait. Very serious news. The nonstop fighting has been happening. Had to sip some water there. Um, I muted my microphone, unlike someone I watch quite often on here on YouTube. He eats on his live stream, and he makes a lot of noises with his mouth, and it's very disgusting, and people complain. And then when people are bothered in his stream, uh, he tries to bother them more. Uh, yeah, his name is Greg. I'm not gonna shout out his channel. Uh, Continuing on with the news. So recently we saw some Russian planes flying to Iran. I saw this myself on the flight radar. Russia sent a doomsday plane to the capital of Iran, Tehran. Russian and Iranian officials will coordinate joint military, intelligence, and diplomatic responses without fear of interception. So that is potentially the main reason that was happening. We also saw that it might have been that same Russian doomsday plane. It headed from that capital to somewhere in China. So there's a very good chance the Russians are coordinating with the Iranians and the Chinese for, as I said before, a total coordinated strike. They're all going to attack their targets at the same time to spread the US and NATO forces thin on all of the fronts. That is very likely what is happening now, what is happening more specifically when it comes to the Russian doomsday plane traveling to those locations. It's all for war coordination and setting the war coordination targets. In other news, not too far from China, this here from Polymarket, and some news from Japan. Japan is reportedly building its first centralized intelligence agency since World War II, with help from the US, Australia, and Germany. So huge news from Japan. That's a huge development, very historic, very relevant to this time we are now in, the Third World War. So the first centralized intelligence agency Japan has since World War II, they now are building in World War III. History repeats itself in a very similar way. Now, since a lot of these attacks have been happening, just the first week of all of this nonstop, this near nonstop fighting, the oil prices are up over 10% now. I do still expect that the price of oil will be $200 by the end of the year at this current rate. That is exactly where it is heading now. It's just skyrocketing every day because of how intense the war is on the Middle Eastern front. We can't forget that Russia's been getting absolutely slammed. Their oil and gas infrastructure is being destroyed by the Ukrainians and their drones. Their drones, their missiles, even Russia's shadow fleet is being destroyed by the Ukrainians. A very smart move by Ukraine that seriously affects the Russian war effort. And then it's just another report, even by BRICS News, that there were major explosions reported all across Iran following the US strikes. That was a couple of days ago. Once again, this has been going on for almost a full 5 days now. All of these strikes the US is doing and Iran is doing, the near nonstop fighting that is happening. So there have been many explosions, lots of fires, lots of casualties in this new fighting. And then in further domestic news here in the United States, especially New York over there. In New York City, the rent prices have surged to a new all-time high, over $5,000 in New York City for the rent. I saw that somewhere. And then Lindsey Graham, he passed away. He was quite a warmonger. Uh, Not the worst senator He was very good at his job. He was pretty much President Trump's right-hand man for years and a very good friend. This is a funny joke here you can watch later. So that's Mitch McConnell now. Mitch McConnell dancing to thriller type music. And then we have the Chinese. They're complaining, they're really urging the United States and Iran to restore safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz because the Chinese are very affected when it comes to oil. China needs the oil that flows out from Iran. It is, I think, right now, the oil that flows from Iran is probably their main oil source, even more so than Russia, I would say. Russia's really running out of oil. So much of their oil and gas infrastructure has been destroyed that people are waiting around for hours there in Russia just to get more fuel. So a good and smart thing to do, much like Ukraine, would be to still somehow prevent China from getting oil. It would massively slow them down and keep the Chinese down in their war effort. Now, President Trump, talking about this here at the top, President Trump wants to become the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz, he says. So, and he wants $10 billion per month to have the U.S. military guard the Strait of Hormuz. I think he wants to do, if I remember correctly, 20%, like a 20% tariff or tax on everything that goes through it as well. So yeah, $10 billion per month to guard the Strait of Hormuz, which is nearly impossible to do. It might not be possible at all. It could cause a massive amount of casualties to the U.S. Navy when it likely fails. He's going to put thousands of troops in a direct line of sight to Iran. That's what he's not thinking about. He's willing to put thousands of US naval troops in a position where they're sitting ducks in the Strait of Hormuz, where they could be annihilated by missiles from Iran. So we've had a lot of that, a lot of missiles being launched from Iran at U.S. military bases all across the Middle East, especially Kuwait and I think it was Bahrain. Iran has been attacking multiple countries. They've been attacking Bahrain, Kuwait, I think parts of Saudi Arabia, maybe even Oman. I heard Abu Dhabi there was explosions there. I think Dubai again. So several areas all across the Middle East have been blown up. They're they've really been getting blown up by Iran. And just the same, Iran has been really getting blown up by the US. The US highly uh, has a lot more, I wouldn't say manpower, a lot more firepower than Iran does. The US is not holding back anymore conventionally. the U.S. is only holding back in a nuclear way for the moment. We could still see nuclear weapons being used on Iran at any moment, especially if they do a large enough attack on the aircraft carriers we have over there. That is full justification to respond in a nuclear way. And President Trump, he may order that to be done anyway if he gets angry enough. He has quite an ego. So we have to keep on preparing for further intensification, which will happen. We have to really prepare for when Russia makes its move on Poland and or the Baltic states. All of those are NATO countries. The US will get fully involved when any of those NATO countries are attacked. Article 5 will be activated when that happens. Then it's more of World War III as most of the world understands when that happens. That's when there will be ground operations taking place in Iran more, in Russia for the first time, and even China. The war is expanding and it is rapidly intensifying. So please keep on preparing physically, mentally, and spiritually for all of these events that are going on now and that are soon to very likely happen. All the while, the price of oil is massively rising and shortages of oil are happening all throughout the world, and that will happen here in the United States very soon, a whole lot more than it is now. President Trump makes quite the bluff that we don't need oil uh, that flows through the Strait of Hormuz. He says we have more than any other place in the world. We don't have all of the infrastructure and the right things in place to distribute all of that oil, to produce it and distribute it everywhere that it's needed, like he says. It's not a thing. So President Trump, he bluffs quite a bit. He's been lying quite a bit about many different things. He's playing quite the politician when it comes to this war. A lot of the political leadership here in the United States is playing quite the politician. So be highly critical of the mainstream media and all government officials. Do not trust a centralized government. So keep on preparing for all of these things that are happening. This could go nuclear very quickly as well. I always recommend physical assets such as gold, silver, land, ammunition, freeze-dried foods, storable foods, all of those things and more. Physical assets overall, especially ammunition, storable foods, and freeze-dried foods. Those are all very important and something for a very reliable water source, as people cannot survive more than 3 days without water. I will be continuing to watch the war in the Middle East, on the Middle Eastern front, what the Ukrainians are doing, what the Chinese may be doing. I will be continuing to watch all of those things and look into all of the news that is happening as it breaks. I do that day and night, every day. I recommend everyone to not get complacent as well. It may seem calm at times, though it certainly is not. We are in the middle of World War III, the total kinetic phase, really on the edge of the nuclear phase, if it goes to that. So, as always, love, light, and blessings to you all. I will be back soon, likely later on or around the same time tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow, probably 8 Central Daylight Time in the evening on Friday. I will be back soon, nonetheless, with another live stream. Thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe on this initially live stream recording on my YouTube channel. Please, once again, keep on preparing and get while the getting is good. It will not be possible to get a lot of things as easily soon.